Hey, I'm Rachel,
And I'm Amanda, and this is Beyond a Ballot.
powered by DoorDash.
Politics has a funny way of resetting the board when you least expect it. One moment the path looks settled, the next, the future is wide open. Today, that's exactly where the New Democrats find themselves. With a leadership race underway, 5 candidates are stepping forward, each with their own vision for what the party should be, who it should fight for, and how it should compete in a political landscape that feels more volatile than ever. For some, this race is about returning the party to its roots: workers, affordability, and economic fairness. For others, it's about expanding the coalition, climate leadership, social justice, and building a new generation of progressive voters. But beneath all of that sits the bigger question: what role should the NDP play in Canadian politics right now? Kingmaker? Opposition? Government in waiting? Well, in this episode, we're speaking to all 5 people who believe that they should be the next leader of the Federal NDP. We'll talk about their vision, their strategy to grow the party, and the moment we're in right now. Because leadership races aren't just about personalities, they're about direction. And for the New Democrats, that direction is very much up for debate. Welcome to the show.
Tanille Johnston is a proud First Nations woman and the first Indigenous woman to run for the NDP leadership. A social worker, mother, and a city councillor from Campbell River, British Columbia, Tanille has spent her life on the front lines fighting for the working class. She knows how hard life has gotten for everyday people, and she says she's ready to lead a movement that puts them first. Tanille Johnston, the NDP candidate for leadership of the federal party, joins me now. Hi, Tanille.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. It's so great to have you on. You are so much energy and excitement, and I really am excited to have this conversation with you and talk about your platform and your leadership run. So why don't we start with who you are? Who is Tanille Johnston?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lot of things. A sister, a mother, a daughter, a granddaughter, a chosen auntie. I'm also a social worker by education and trade, something I'm very proud of. I'm currently a city councillor for the city of Campbell River. And now the first Indigenous person ever to be represented on a federal leadership ballot in Canadian political history. So super excited about that for sure.
Okay, so wait, let me just dive in there. You are the first Indigenous person to ever run in a federal leadership campaign. Is that right?
First Indigenous person to actually make it on the ballot. So there were a couple folks before me that ran, but never came to fruition to be on the ballot, to be someone that people can actually vote for in a federal leadership race.
Are you serious? Oh my God, I had no idea. This is amazing.
We had to quadruple check the facts before we got too excited. We did not want to mess that up, but yeah, it's thrilling.
Oh, that's so amazing. And you said a mother, you have children?
Yes, I have two girls. Lainey is about 20 months and Collins is 7, be 8 in October.
I'm sorry, you have a 20-month-old and you are running for federal leadership? How's that going?
It's going. It's so nice that she's older now, so she'll be 2 in May, but she was attached to me during the last federal election. So when I was running around our 56,000 square kilometer riding, I had what I called a Lainey handler. So I brought my friend with me that could have the baby because she was still breastfeeding. So I was, breastfeeding during the day and at night and, campaigning 24/7. So Lainey has been campaigning since she was born.
Wow. Oh my God. I'm so impressed. That's awesome. Speaking of the federal election, can you talk to us about the current state of the NDP in your mind? Because obviously the 2025 campaign didn't go so well for the NDP. They now only hold a few seats in the House, lost party status as well. What are you thinking in terms of the current state and how the NDP does better in the next election?
Yeah, I look at these opportunities as like an open landscape for renewal and change. And it's actually really exciting to me that we have this opportunity to essentially reinvent ourselves and welcome ourselves into a new era of politics. You no longer have to wait for the newspaper to hit your doorstep to know what's going on in the world, right? You open your phone or your laptop, or you turn on your TV, and you're inundated with information. So we need to get on that treadmill and get going with it. We need to be across platforms and make ourselves extremely accessible so that we can keep up with that pace and start to champion on those platforms. Especially, podcasts are a great one. There's so many very skilled podcasters out there that are asking for, some attention in this arena and to participate, because so many folks get their information from podcasts just like yours. Like, people are leaning into that space, wanting to listen to what you think and who you're talking to, and we need to take opportunities just like this that you're providing to lean in and really share.
So talk to me about what are those differentiators for the NDP? Like, what are the policies? What are the steps, the tangible steps that need to be taken to really rebuild this party?
Yeah, I mean, unapologetically to the left. We have been far too close to the coattails of Liberals, and it's not a good look. We need to champion our pathway and be loud and proud about it. For a while there, with stuff like championing climate change was being targeted as something that was, unrealistic, and it's not going to create any jobs, and it's going to break down industries. And we need to combat that misinformation by getting the message out there about the job creation that comes along with that, about the educational pathways to gain a new career in an industry that maybe isn't as tough on your, body, mind, and soul as, being in oil. Oil's hard. Oil's a tough job. I have lots of relatives that work in the oil patch. And it's hard. It's hard on family because you're away so much, and it's hard on your body. So we really, really need to be really bold in that place and get the education out there on platforms like TikTok, like, Mastodon and the Fediverse, Instagram, Twitch, like you name it, so that folks can really make educated decisions when they get to the ballot box.
So 5 people on the ballot in this race, you being one of them, very exciting. How do you differentiate yourself and stand out from the crowd?
I mean, you mentioned it at the very beginning. I have a ton of energy. I like to think that it's transferable. So I love to, offer that space to folks whenever someone wants to reach out and have a chat. I'm there for it. I mean, coming with this social work lens, coming with this lived experience as an Indigenous person in Canada, coming from a rural riding, working in healthcare where we have like multiple crises that are all smashing together. I see it and I live it every single day. I'm also from a completely different generation. Like, I'm a decade younger than the next youngest person. And it is kind of our time. We need to take up leadership space. We need to be the change that we want to see in Canada, because we've lived it long enough. And it's time now for us to step into these spaces and really drive that change forward. I mean, I come from the student movement. Students are loud and feisty. They're social justice orientated. They're well educated. They're passionate. Like, that is the momentum we need within our party. And we need to connect with them across the country at their institutions and say, hey, sorry for being vacant for so long, but we're here and we want to know what you need and we want to know how you need us to support you. And let's get going.
Okay, so speaking of support, I told you we have a lot of very vocal NDPers within the Beyond a Ballot community, and we love them dearly. But there are definitely some people listening that will be voting in the leadership race at the end of the month. What is your pitch to voters, and what is your pitch to the general public in terms of voting for the NDP?
Yeah, I mean, I think for voters, I'm a big proponent of what you see is what you get. I walk my talk. I'm not going to say I'm going to do something and then not do it. I'm a very truthful, trustworthy person. I hold integrity as my core value. And I mean what I say. And so we've been living and breathing kind of integrity through our campaign. I mean, I call myself this rural riding champion, right? Like, I'm never going to leave the rural and isolated voices behind. And so we've run our campaign in that way. We've gone to places that the NDP hasn't been in decades. they haven't seen a leadership candidate or a leader in far too long. And so we've been going to those places saying, hey, we see you, we're here, and we're not giving up, and we value you as a part of our party. And so we need to be doing that work across the country. We need to honor our grassroots, but also grow into that new generation so that we can come back bigger and bolder than ever. And a big part of that work I see as a huge asset and kind of value in myself is building those government to government relationships with our nations across the country. We have over 600 nations in Canada, and arguably they don't have a strong government to government relationship with any party. And I really would love the NDP to take up that space. Something we did provincially and federally in the last election is we went to the 22 nations that are in both the provincial and federal riding, and we made sure they all had ballot boxes in their community. There were nations that have never had a ballot box in their community to vote in ever. And it increased the Indigenous voter turnout. Wow. It was amazing. It was heartwarming, and it's good work. And that's the kind of work we should be doing as the NDP. We need to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Build the relationship, earn the trust, and you'll earn the vote when voting day comes. But just let's do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Okay, so you win the leadership. What is the first 100 days under your leadership like for the party?
The first 100 days would be wild. So we have 343 ridings, and I was doing this math based on kind of how we've run our tours throughout this campaign. So 343 ridings. My comment to one of our campaign team members was, you know what? I bet you I could do 343 ridings in 90 days.
Wow.
I bet you I could go to all of them? All of them. And say, hi, this is me. I'm here. Let's do this. And let's go. So like we ran, how many events? We had 15 events in 4 days all across Alberta and Saskatchewan. You do your event, you hang out for a few hours, meet as many people as you can, listen twice as much as you're talking, and then you're in the car and you're off to the next one. And that would absolutely be my commitment, is busy, reaching out to the membership, showing up where our members are, whether it's a rural community or an urban center, and saying, I'm here, tell me what you need, and like, let's go.
And what strategically does that look like in terms of provinces where there has been traditionally strong NDP ridings like British Columbia and increasing the number of NDP MPs here? We're both in BC. And then other provinces like Alberta, where traditionally there are fewer NDP ridings. Like, how do you strategically pick up, and I'll touch on Quebec as well, the positioning of the NDP in the province of Quebec? Like, how do you speak to your strategy to try and pick up seats nationally?
Yeah, I think we do have some priorities to take in the next election. And I think those priorities need to not be a secret to our members. I think our members need to know what our strategy is going to be, how it's going to unfold, and where they are an asset in that strategy. Because every riding is an asset, just in different ways and different capacities. I mean, for an example, like we went to Camrose. Camrose is Pierre Poilievre's riding, but we went to Camrose. We have 57 registered members in Camrose, and I wanted to make sure they knew that we were going to come and say hi. So it really is about having that really far reach and having that initial touch base to start rooting that relationship, because not everybody knows me yet. Hopefully a lot of people are getting to know me from, platforms and opportunities like you're providing over media, whether I've been on the phone with someone or met them at an event. Like, that relationship is growing, but it does take consistency in showing up to grow relationships and trust. And so I don't want to automatically assume that now everyone's just going to support me because I won leadership. I still think I need to earn that support and earn that right to be leader every single day after hopefully the big leadership win at the end of March. So yeah, that's kind of what it looks like for me.
Okay. And my final question, you could potentially be launched into a by-election as soon as you win the leadership. How do you make that turnaround? And what's your strategy for dealing with by-elections that could be coming up in the next few months?
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of, like, why aren't our candidates out now? I want to see candidates out between 3 and 6 months after any election. I would like our communities to always have their person, to know that their person's there, and to be confident in them when they come to next elections. Because if we can do that, then whenever there is a by-election, we already have our people. There might be, some times where you have to trade someone out because, life happens. But for most of our ridings, they'll be really confident in who's going to represent them in the House of Commons. So we need to get our candidates out right away after this leadership race. That has to happen. We need to start meeting with our EDAs and getting election ready. It needs to be every day, not just election day. If we keep up the pace and build the momentum and keep feeding that momentum, that's how we can enter into any by-election from a really stable place, because we already know our folks, we already have our rules in place, and we're ready to hit the ground running.
All right. Any final comments or statements that you want to make to our audience?
Just that I'm so grateful for this opportunity to be on here with you. It's so exciting. I love that you have a huge NDP following and that they're kind of loud. I love that.
They are super loud. Sure. We love them too.
Yeah. And just, people keep watching. I hear that some people want to see more from me, and I'll give you everything you want. Let's go. I have so much energy, and I'm ready to get dedicated to building our party in a bigger, bolder way than we've ever seen before. And I would be so honored to have that privilege to do that work for the NDP.
Amazing. Tanille Johnston, thank you very much, and best of luck in the leadership race.
Yes, thank you.
We'll be right back.
Today, we're joined by Tony McQuail. McQuail is a longtime organic farmer from Ontario and a well-known advocate for sustainable agriculture, rural communities, and climate action. Over decades, he's helped shape conversations around food systems, farmland preservation, and how Canada can support farmers while transitioning to a more sustainable economy. Now he's stepping into the federal leadership race for the new Democratic Party of Canada, bringing a perspective that comes directly from rural Canada and the agricultural sector. Today, we'll talk to him about what motivated him to run, how his experience on the land shapes his political outlook, that signature hat, and what he believes the future of the NDP and the country should look like. Tony McQuail, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We want to start with the question that we're asking everybody. We're not asking everybody this specific question, but who is Tony McQuail?
Well, I'm a farmer. I'm a father and grandfather. I've been active in the NDP since I first ran in 1980 as a young farmer. And I ran because I thought we could be doing a better job for the people and the planet in 1980. And I have watched for 45 years while the Liberals and Conservatives have, in my opinion, made things worse and worse and worse for both the planet and the people, which is why I'm running for the leadership, is to try and bring some of those concerns clearly to the fore.
What do you think the NDP needs in 2026?
I think we need a clear vision, and that's why we've put a holistic goal on our website, Tony McQuail, greenprogressive.ca, to talk about what kind of society we want. And I think we need then a clear program. And I think we need to finally get serious about dealing with the handicap or the log jam or the roadblock of our first past the post electoral system. And I've been saying that we need to think about how to build a strong green progressive coalition. I'm not interested in talking left and right, because I think we're looking at a situation where there are a few at the top and many of us at the bottom of society, which supports and builds society, that have been neglected and in fact robbed for the last 45 years since I've been involved. And so we need to build that coalition and provide a clear single alternative in most ridings, so that when people have a choice, they can say, well, I can either keep going with the Liberals and Conservatives who've been taking us on this growth, this corporate capitalist consumerist growth ideology, which has grown wealth inequity remarkably and grown environmental damage very significantly. Or we can choose something that is trying to take us in a new direction and a better direction. So I think dealing with that first past the post, because it has defeated women and men and working men since they got the vote after the First World War. It handicapped the United Farmers, the Independent Labor, the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, and now the NDP and the Greens. And we can't keep going in the direction we are, or my grandchildren are not going to have a very happy-looking future.
So the 2025 federal election obviously was not the best outcome for the federal NDP, losing party status. What do you think went wrong in that election, and how would you shift the party to ensure electoral success in the next one?
Well, Donald Trump is a very significant part of what went wrong, both for the federal party and in Ontario, when Doug Ford called his opportunistic year early election. Let's all be scared of Donald Trump. Let's all pull together behind some leader. But I also think the party failed to articulate a clear alternative vision. I think we could have used the threat of tariffs to talk about relocalizing our economy, focusing our economy on what people actually need, the real needs of people in terms of housing, food security, healthcare, and talk about redirecting our economic efforts so we aren't so dependent on export, but in fact are meeting the real needs of real Canadians across the country. And I don't think we did a great job of doing that, but I think there was so much fear that it was also a very tough election. And the Liberals always tell you that, you're going to waste your vote if you don't vote for us, if you're scared of Pierre Poilievre, I've heard that in every election I've run, and I've run in 5 federal and 2 provincial elections, and I've managed a great many more. So, we've got to provide an alternative. Says, no, you don't have to vote. You don't have to hold your nose and vote, people. You can vote for what you want. But the other thing we have to recognize and deal with is that the political system, because of first past the post, has been so bad at providing representation to ordinary working class people and the non-working class, who are actually the folks who are if you look at my Hazel Henderson layer cake, which has nature at the bottom, then the family and community, then the public sector, and then the private sector. And she said, every layer depends on all the layers below it. The family and community sector is an unwaged thing. It isn't looked at when we talk about gross domestic product, and neither is the nature one. So our economy neglects critical parts of our society and has been doing so for so long that we have a huge amount of opportunity to refocus our economic activity to build the things and build the society that actually works for people and the environment. And that would, to me, to be a much more positive message that then might reattract the 50% of the eligible voters who've given up on voting, and also the 50% of voters who've been casting ballots, or the 50% of the people who actually vote whose ballot is basically thrown out on election night with no representation. So we've been talking about 4 R's. Representation is the first one, because we've got to solve that roadblock or logjam. Regeneration, because we have to look after the environment, or we aren't going to have a place to call home. The web of life is what supports all of us. And then redistribution, because the economy's been structured to concentrate wealth at the top, and it's done a really good job. We've got 1,400% more billionaires than when I first ran in 1980. Don't think life's gotten that much easier for ordinary folks. And then redesign, because we've got to redesign the economy so that it works for people and with the environment, and isn't pitting the economy against the environment, which is where we're going to have to survive. So those are the ways I think we could have re-articulated, and that's certainly why I'm in the campaign, is to try and make sure that those ideas are heard.
Tony, one of your signatures is the hat that you wear. I note you all the time because of your hat, but what actually differentiates you from the candidates who are vying for this big job to become leader of the federal NDP?
Well, for over 50 years, I've worked on building organizations like the Ecological Farmers Association. I've worked in the Holistic Management Canada Group, Farmers for Climate Solutions. I come from a Quaker background, which from its early days, Quakers felt that men and women were equal. And so I come from the experience of working in meetings where there are a lot of strong, thoughtful, and assertive women, and feel very comfortable working with working with people. As Quakers, we also work on the basis of consensus, which means you work to listen and understand where people are coming from, so you can try and find what's the synthesis of our concerns and ideas, not just my way or the highway. And so I bring those talents, and I also have worked in rural riding and rural organizing for over 45 years now. And my belief is that if we're going to actually create governments that work for people, we have to have representation from across the country and also across any rural and urban potential divides. And so I believe that we have to get very serious about strengthening our local riding associations and help them connect more effectively with their communities, so that we have a strong foundation and a strong communication link between the political part of the center of folks in Parliament with people in the grassroots communities, both in the riding associations and the people they work and live with, because generally the mass media is not going to carry our message effectively. And so we have to have alternate channels of communication by which we can share what we're doing and learn what people want us to be doing. And so that's those are skills that I bring to it. And the hat is there because both it's my hard hat; it keeps the sun from giving me skin cancer on my ears and nose. But it's also and I do have a hard hat. When I cut down trees, I do have a hard hat with earmuffs and a face protection. But the hat is also part of my Quaker heritage. As I said, Quakers believed that women and men were equal, but they also believed that people were equal. And in the days when Quakers were getting started, you were supposed to doff your hat to your betters, the Duke or the Earl or the Squire, and Quakers refused to doff their hats. So that's one of the reasons I wear my hat. And it's also my work clothes. I come in clean green work shirt and a orange Every Child Matters t-shirt because when I first got involved in politics, I got a new suit. I was running in 1980 as a young candidate. I went to an interview. The guy took pictures of me in the suit, but the column that came out and the picture with it was one that was from, they dug up in their archives, and it made me look like Fidel Castro with no suit. And 10 years later, I was the executive assistant to the Minister of Agriculture in Ontario. And the minister has a box at the Royal Winter Fair. But to sit in the box, you had to have a tuxedo.
Oh.
And I went out and I bought a tuxedo, but it really irritated me because why am I dressing up to look like I'm part of the 1%? I'm a farmer. I'm proud to be a farmer. Food is the base of society. And since then, I decided I'd dress like a farmer. I'd be like a farmer. I'd be who I am. So if that's useful to know why I wear the hat and why I wear my farm clothes rather than a suit and tie, it's because I think we need more people in Parliament who know what it's like to go out and work every day. And I'm telling people, as a farmer, I'm out in the environment every day. I see the world from a very different perspective than someone who sits in the corner office of a corporate tower. And as a farmer, I'm seeing very worrying things in terms of the environment. When I first when my wife and I were married, it was back in 1975, 50 years ago. We were married in our apple orchard on May 24th, and it was just alive with insects. It was just buzzing. I went out this past year, 25, 50 years later. It was in full bloom, same date, sunny day, and it was silent. And I saw 3 insects in the blossom. And, insects are part and a very important part of sort of the base of the food web
for sure
in the ecosystem. And if we're losing that, we are actually at the point of ecological collapse if we don't change what we're doing in the ecosystem. And that affects everybody.
Yeah. I want to ask you, you win the leadership. What are the first 100 days of a McQuail leadership like? What are your first things you tackle?
So we're talking leadership of the NDP, not being prime minister. People can conflate these things. So
NDP.
Well, okay. First thing I do is I'm calling the other members of the leadership race and saying, how can we build a team? that uses all those incredible talents and connections to build a really strong force, then I don't see getting into Parliament as an urgent thing, because I think we have to rebuild the base. So I would be trying to now actually go around and use a rideshare approach to move across the country, visiting and working with riding associations. Say, how can we help you? How can we strengthen your ability to connect with your community and to build the NDP? Also, I would make sure that instead of fundraising emails, our emails would talk about what our members are doing in Parliament and what members are doing in provincial legislatures. They would talk about what other countries are doing in terms of the crises that we're facing in terms of wealth inequity, environmental collapse, food, housing, those sorts of things. And I would also use our emails to highlight what ridings feel are the successful things they're doing and build a much stronger network. And then, of course, at the bottom, you ask for a donation because it takes money to do this work. But for God's sake, stop sending me all these dunning emails. I didn't get into the NDP to get this crap. And it just turns people. I sell memberships to people who say, I'm getting so damn many emails, I don't want to be a member. Like how this is not how you build an organization. This is how you strangle and kill an organization. Look, I've run a lot of campaigns. I know you have to raise money, but we'll never compete with the conservatives and liberals for wealth. We have to compete with them on ideas and organization and solidarity and community. So the next thing that the McQuail leadership would be doing would be contacting other political parties like the Greens, like the Bloc, and like some of the very small parties that are out there. And also social activist groups, either Lead Now or ECO or the labor unions, the nature clubs, the people concerned about climate, people concerned about food security, people concerned about health, and saying, how do we build the Green Coalition? What is the platform that we need to have that would multi-solve all these different things that we're working on in a way that would build the Canada that we've described in our holistic goal, which people can find on our website at Tony McQuail, greenprogressive.ca. But my feeling is that at this point, the leader needs hopefully to be working with all the other candidates who bring great skills and talent and connections to build the base of the party, and also then be mentoring and training prospective candidates who would be then supportive of that Green Progressive coalition and platform, so that we actually, if Carney decides he's going to call a snap election to try and get a phony majority government, that we've got something that is connected and on offer to the people who've given up on voting, to the people who never have their vote count, and also to disillusioned liberals who are really tired of the liberal bait and switch approach to politics. We'll sound like New Democrats before the election and we'll govern like Tories afterwards. Welcome to liberal Canada. And also, I think there are some concerned conservatives who actually are small c conservatives who believe that community is important. Because I think we have to recognize that we need to reach out to farmers, small business people, homeowners. These are the people who are invested in their communities, and they are not being well served by the liberals and conservatives when it looks to chopping healthcare and emergency rooms, when the attack on education and their kids trying to get an education. So we need to build that big coalition that really resonates with our values. And rural Canada resonates with values of cooperation and community and mutual support, which are really NDP values, CCF values.
Tony, you give a powerful and persuasive and really articulate pitch. So we want to wish you all the best in the leadership race. Just a little bit of time left to the end. And we think this was the perfect chance to connect with so many of our NDP listeners. Good luck in the race.
Up next, we're joined by Rob Ashton, a lifelong worker, union leader, and candidate for the federal NDP leadership. For more than 30 years, Rob has worked as a dock worker and union member, and today serves as the national president of the International Longshore Workers Union Canada, representing thousands of workers across BC and Saskatchewan.
And Rob Ashton joins us now. Rob, thank you so much for taking time away from your busy schedule to talk to our listeners. We're really happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's my absolute pleasure to be here.
So as you know, we've been talking to each of the leading candidates for leader of the federal NDP. And we always start with the same question, which is to tell our listeners just a little bit about who you are. Who is Rob Ashton?
Well, I'm a 32-year veteran of the waterfront here in the Port of Vancouver. Currently the national president, which I've held this seat by the good graces of my members for the last 10 years. I'm a dad. I'm a grandfather. And I'm hopefully the next leader of the Federal NDP, which is one of the more exciting things that have been happening in my life. And what third most humbling moment of my life, and the other two was the birth of my children. But I won't tell you who's number one and who's number two.
I love that.
Fair.
I love that. Okay, let's dive into the NDP itself, because obviously not a great result in the last election. You're sitting without party status in the House. What does the NDP need right now in terms of leadership?
What we need somebody that can earn the trust back of voters in this country. We need somebody that's proven to be able to bring conservative voters and liberal voters alike back to the party, or re-engage with NDP voters who sat the last election out. First and foremost, we have to win party status. And the reason why we've lost those voters is because we drifted away from, I believe, our working class roots. I believe that we lost the ability to communicate, but most importantly, we lost the ability to listen to our membership. And we have to turn the party around to be a membership-driven organization, more power to the members and more power to the EDAs. And that's my specialty, because my union is a rank-and-file-led union. I wouldn't know how to lead an organization from the top down if you paid me to. So I guess they do eventually.
They are going to pay you to.
They will. And that's why I'm putting emphasis on adjusting the leadership style of the NDP, because it's the membership that matters. It's not the person that gets elected leader. The person that gets a leader is the voice box of the membership and of the EDAs across the country. And that's what I plan on changing to bring that trust back and listening to people.
So you've been doing, I'm sure, a lot of listening as you've been talking to members on this trail to become leader. What are you hearing from NDP members, or what is the thing that's most resonating to you right now?
I think that they want us to talk about fighting for jobs, fighting for affordability in this country, fighting for housing. Because the ruling class governments that we've elected for generations now, they tell us all these good things that they're going to give us all this stuff, and they're doing all these positive things for us. But at the end of the day, nothing happens. You see ruling class governments that give millions, if not billions of dollars to corporations, but it doesn't do anything to spur on work or lift workers up or give people jobs. CEOs and boards of directors get a whole ton of money in their pocket, but then they up and leave. And so they want that money that we invest into corporations to be tied to jobs and tied to investment to keep those companies in the country. The other thing that they're talking about is what I was just chatting about after the last question, is they do want more power to the EDAs. They do want more membership strength. They want the ability for cross communication between EDAs and Ottawa. And that's a key component, because if you don't have that communication, what happens is I'm going to be sitting in Ottawa when I get elected leader, me and Grogu back there, and we're just going to be sitting around and we're going to be going, man, we're doing really good. We're the best party in the world. But because if we're not talking to the party, if we're not talking to the EDAs and the members, Rome could be burning around us and we'll never know.
Right.
Right. So the leader can't be insulated. The leader has to be on the ground, talking to members and keeping engaged. Right?
So in terms of leadership, there are 5 people in this race.
Yep.
How do you differentiate yourself from your opponents?
I think the big thing is I decided to run for leadership and make it official in like September of last year. I never really saw myself running in like federal or provincial politics before. I've been asked a couple of times, but I've turned them down. But it got to a point where I got tired. I was angry. I was angry that people were buying that Polivia was saying that he was a working class hero, and that's, in my humble opinion, that's no further from the truth than saying ice is made from milk, right? Like it's crazy. And so I got tired of that. I got tired of nobody fighting for workers' rights. I got tired of workers getting the short end of the stick. I got tired of people on disability being in legislative poverty. Right. And so what actually does separate me, besides jumping into the race basically 2 weeks before I announced, is that I'm part of the working class. I grew up on the docks. I've been on picket lines. That's where I spent my life. I've defended workers. I've defended groups that I'm allied with, that my union's allied with. I've been in the trenches. I've negotiated good collective agreements for workers, what they need and what they want to make their lives better. And that's a big part of who I am. That I didn't, I didn't grow up with money. I didn't go to a fancy school. I didn't go to university. I didn't go to college. I graduated high school. I went straight to the docks. And I've learned everything I know through worker struggles. And that's what differentiates me from the other candidates. That, and I got a lot more gray than everybody else.
A little gray is just
maybe
fine.
Not my buddy Tony, but
but he is sporting the hat,
he is,
there's that. We have been asking about the idea of, let's imagine you win the leadership and day one rolls around. What do the first few weeks or the first few months of your leadership look like? What are the things that you would want to do almost immediately out of the gate as leader of the party?
Meet with the EDAs, like not individually. There's 360 some odd of them across the country. But the first goal is turning the NDP into a working class party, a rank and file party. And so that would be structuring meetings, like provincial and territorial meetings with each group of EDAs, to find out how we can have a better relationship and to find out what they believe, the members believe we need to do to make those changes. And so that's the first part of it. The next part of it is to get into communities across the country and to remind people that we are the working class party, that we're the ones that we're the party that holds their values. We're the party that's going to try to change labor laws so the labor laws actually work for the working class and not for the ruling class. And to get right down really quickly, one example in the minutia is the United Steelworkers a number of years ago started a campaign, Kill a Worker, Go to Jail. There has maybe been one employer, if I remember correctly, that's actually served jail time for killing a worker on a job site. The rest of them just get fines, and they're not huge fines either. On the waterfront, the last two workers that were killed on the waterfront here, they received the two employers. One received a $200,000 fine, and the other employer received a $250,000 fine. Like, that's disgusting. Like, that's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
So we have to not only build homes for people, we have like affordable homes, co-op style, so people that can actually afford to live and maybe buy a steak and go on a vacation every once in a while. Get them jobs, and make life more affordable for people. But we also have to look at the laws in this country and change them so that the working class actually has a fighting chance.
Speaking of fighting chance, you could be elected leader in a couple of weeks. Yeah. Mark Carney, the current prime minister, could say, you know what? I feel like going to the polls. Yeah. Are you ready to lead? You don't have a seat in the House. How do you navigate that situation?
I said, bring it on. It's so,
amazing.
I think, actually, I know that the party needs a leader to be elected that doesn't have a seat in the House. Because, and the reason I say that is because we have to go and meet people where they're at. And so we have to go up to Pond Inlet in northern Nunavut to have those conversations with small communities. We have to be in Toronto. We have to be in Gatineau, or we have PEI, or up in the Yukon. We have to go to these communities to reintroduce ourselves to people. and say, we're back. Like our campaign, what we've noticed, because I've never had like a year or 2 or 10 to get my campaign mode in. It took us a while to gain some momentum. And so come the end of December, beginning of January, what we started seeing is that when we'd go to an event or we'd host an event, people would be approaching me and saying, hey, just so you know, I voted Conservative in the last election. But I like what you're doing. So I've signed up to the party and I'm supporting you. And that's not 1 or 2 stops. That's everywhere. And after the debate here in New Westminster, I went to my social event afterwards, and I had a gentleman come up to me and say, I've never belonged to a party before in my life. He goes, but I've signed up because of you.
Wow.
So in that short amount of time, this is the change that we're making.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about stuff that people want to talk about, and we're fighting for people. And that's what I plan on keeping on doing. And so, yeah. And if the Prime Minister says we're going to a full out election, bring it on. Let's do it. I'll prove to you when I get elected leader on March 29th that we are the party of the working class, that we are the party that's going to represent Canadians properly, and not allow the hatred and the division that the ruling class governments across this country sow to split workers up, because that's how they win, by dividing workers. And I will fight every single day to stop that. You know, Jack Layton said it best: when you lead with hope and love and compassion, you win the day. And that's how you defeat hate and division.
Well said. So there are thousands of NDP listeners right now.
Yeah.
And many of them will be voting. What is your pitch to them? Why you? Why vote for you to become the next leader of the federal party?
Because I'm the person that can rebuild the party in the image that we all want. I'm the leader that has the experience, the only person in this race that has the experience actually leading a rank and file based party. You know, and we have to get into not just the Torontos, the Vancouvers, the Montreals of the country. We have to get into rural areas. We have to get into the north. We have to build the party back up in places where it's not there or it's slowly disappearing, whether it's Quebec or PEI. We have to bring voters back from Saskatchewan and Alberta. Right? And I'm the leader that knows people's struggles in life. You know, I've lived them. My members have lived them. I fought for people to get not just cost of living increases to their checks so they can actually live life, but to be better than that. Right? And I'm that leader. And people know it. Like there's people that you can say that you're that person, and you could be like, yeah, I'm this, I'm that. Blah, blah. But people know when they talk to you, right? Because you look them in the eye and you can feel their pain, their suffering. You don't have to have an answer to everything that they say. And I don't have answers for everything. But to understand, or try to understand, what they're going through, and to be prepared to fight like hell for them. And that's what I'm ready to deliver on. But most importantly is listening to people. Because politicians like to talk a lot. And I don't ever want to become a politician. I want to be a workers' politician. Somebody that'll never forget where they come from. Put on my work boots every day because that's my office footwear. And go sit in the House. And when members of the ruling class government start talking BS, they're going to hear my work boot tapping on the wood to know that we're there, that workers are there, and that we're going to call out all their BS in the House and in the streets. And we're going to do it, not for Rob Ashton, leader, but for the working class. And the working class is everybody that doesn't own the means of production unless it's worker-owned means of production.
Wow. Well, you can feel your passion just coming through the screen there, Rob. That was, that's quite a pitch to voters. It's really, you can feel your vision. You can feel your how you will navigate the leadership of this party. And so it has been just an absolute pleasure to talk to you. We want to wish you all the best in the leadership in a couple of weeks, and hope that you'll come back when you're leader of the federal NDP.
Rachel, Amanda, thank you for the time. And 100%, that's one of the key aspects of our campaign is we want to be open with the media, and we want to be open with our members. And like I said, everybody can spot a BSer. And that's why no BS. You just tell people what like it is.
All right. Rob Ashton, thanks so much. We'll be right back.
Thank you very much.
Today, we're joined by Heather McPherson. First elected to Parliament in 2019, McPherson represents Edmonton, Strathcona, and serves as the New Democrat Party's critic for foreign affairs. Before politics, she spent years working in the nonprofit and international development sector, focused on humanitarian work and global partnerships. In Ottawa, she's built a reputation as a strong voice on human rights, international cooperation, and Canada's role on the global stage. Today, we'll talk about her path to politics, what's shaping her work in Parliament right now, and how she sees the future of the NDP and progressive politics in Canada.
And Heather McPherson joins us now. Heather, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks
for joining us. We are so thrilled to talk to you. I want to start with either an easy question or a very hard question, but who is Heather McPherson?
Well, obviously that's a very easy and a very hard question. Exactly as you said. Listen, I'm a member of Parliament for Edmonton, Strathcona. I was elected in 2019. I grew up in Edmonton. My dad was a truck driver. My mom was a teacher. I actually was a teacher by training. That's what I did prior to politics. I spent a lot of time working on education, working on gender equality, on women's rights, on sustainable development around the world before I got elected. What else am I? I'm a runner. I love to ski. I've got 2 kids. I have 2 dogs that I think miss me more than my husband and my children miss me. But they literally get deeply, deeply sad when they see the little carry-on come out of the closet.
So sad.
It is very, very sad. It's sad for all of us. Sad for all of us.
The NDP had a difficult last general election. And I think a lot of our listeners, we have a lot of NDP listeners. They're very curious, obviously, about this leadership race. In your mind, what does the NDP need to do in 2026 to start resonating with Canadians and voters again?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I went back to Ottawa after this last election, and I walked into my office, and, I burst into tears because the things that we had lost, having to let go of so many of the incredible staff that made up our party, losing so many of my colleagues, it was rough. That's a hard thing to do. Politics is always rough, but that was a rough one. And I have thought about it a lot. Of course, I thought about it even before I put my name forward to be leader. And I think what we need to do is we need to welcome more people back into our party. We need to build a movement where people see themselves. I tell a story about my dad all the time. I'm super excited because my dad's coming to his very first NDP convention in Winnipeg at 83 years old. But it's this idea that we became small. We started talking specifics, and we started talking about are you a social democrat? Are you a democratic socialist? Are you pure enough to be part of our party? Do you know all of the words? And I think that's a mistake. I think it's a mistake we've made, and we've excluded people instead of opening up the doors and welcoming more people in. And when I say that, I want to be very clear. I don't mean changing any of the progressive, values that we have. The values of looking out for your neighbor, the values of dealing with climate change, of taking care of each other, of protecting our healthcare system, of ensuring everyone has a place to live. None of those values are what we need to change. But how we talk about them, who we talk about them with, how we connect to people, that matters, I think. And I've done that work in Alberta. Alberta is not it's a pretty conservative place. And there is, a lot of the folks in Alberta that might have thought of themselves as conservative, they're New Democrats because they actually share the same values that New Democrats share. So we just have to do a better job of meeting people where they're at.
So what would you say are the big policy issues for your campaign? Like, how do you differentiate yourself amongst the 5 leadership contenders?
I mean, this is one of the things. Listen, we all believe in a lot of the same things. We're New Democrats. This is the violent agreement phase. Like we all agree that there is a national housing crisis in this country. We all agree that we need to do more to connect with workers, to make sure people have jobs, particularly young people. All of those things are things that I think you'll hear all 5 candidates talk about. We all believe we need an electoral system that actually works, that is not first past the post. We all believe in protecting our healthcare system. The issue is we can't deliver that as New Democrats unless we win more seats. We can't deliver it unless we win. If our whole point is just to agree with each other and talk about just how wonderful it would be if New Democrats were government, we might as well be a club.
Right.
We're a political party. And our job here is to win more seats. And I think what I bring to this race is I know how to do that. Like I've actually done it now. I've done it in Edmonton. I've done it in my seat. I've worked across the country. I've door knocked in Smithers to St. John's to get New Democrats elected. I think that's what we need right now. I'm really proud of the work that we did in the last parliament, that the 25 of us were able to fundamentally change this country. We got dental care for 6 million people who have never gotten it. The Liberals will take credit for it, but let's be clear, that happened because of New Democrats. Some of the positions we've got on foreign affairs happened because of New Democrats. Anti-scab legislation. I can go on and on. We don't have to necessarily win government to be able to make the lives of all Canadians better. But we do need to be present. We do need to win more seats. We do need to be in the House of Commons and be a recognized party.
This leadership race has been going on for some time now. You've been traveling. What are you hearing from New Democrats as you're at those doors and in those rallies and talking to people who have been longtime members of the party or maybe those who are new to the fold? Like, what are the top issues that they're talking to you about? What are they expecting from the leadership?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I've heard a lot about across the country is how important it is to rebuild. We have seen this government take a bit of a swing to the right. We have seen some policies that this government is taking be a little bit more on the conservative side of the equation. And it makes it clear that we do need a progressive party that is in the House of Commons. We have 7 seats. I have no illusions that we are running for government in the next election. This is a rebuilding phase of our party, absolutely. But I also know with 25 seats, we were able to hold the government accountable to the promises that they had made to Canadians. I think that's the role that the New Democrats need to be playing. We need to push the government, until we get to government. I will also say, talking to New Democrats across the country, that we have provincial parties that are doing very, very well in this country. Of course, we're government in British Columbia, we're government in Manitoba, huge oppositions across the country. I think of Alberta and Saskatchewan with real potential to win. And I think that building on that success, building on the work that our provincial cousins have done is something else that people are interested in. New Democrats want to see us be successful. New Democrats recognize, that we're the only party that's going to protect healthcare. We're the only party that's like really going to be pushing for those things that New Democrats believe in. I think there's a lot of questions about how we rebuild the party. I think there's a lot of questions about, the speed that we can do it, what the next election will look like, all of those things. And there's also a lot of hope. There's a lot of opportunity for us to step up and be present in the House again.
So you go to convention, you win the leadership race. What is a Heather McPherson NDP like in the first 100 days?
If on March 30th I'm the leader of the Federal New Democratic Party, we will be getting election ready. That is what we will be doing. Because whether or not the election is in the spring or whether it's in the fall or whatnot, it is a minority government. It is a extraordinarily tight minority government. Even if Mr. Carney's able to convince a few more people to cross the floor, if he's gone enough conservative that the Conservatives feel more welcome in his party, then absolutely, I still think he will want to go to the polls. So we will see. It's out of my hands. But I will say the first thing we need to do is get election ready. We need to have our candidates in place. We need to be building that team up. Once that's in place, then of course it's being in the House. It's hitting on the things that Canadians need right now. I think, the very first platform piece we put out was on housing. There is a national housing emergency in this country. There are huge things that need to be done with regards to housing. And I have watched the government bring forward half of what they promised in housing just 6 months later, in a budget 6 months after the election. I think right now, the way that the world is looking, how absolutely terrifying it is to see what is happening on the global stage. I'm really going to be digging into my expertise within foreign affairs. I've been the foreign affairs critic for the last 4 years. I did that work a lot before I was elected. So I think really digging into that expertise to be able to ensure Canada's response to these global crises is in line with Canadian values.
Do you think that you can either work with this government and or influence the government despite the smaller number of seats that you now hold in the House? Like legislatively, do you think you can influence what's happening?
So I think that New Democrats will always work with whichever government of the day it is, if the things that government is delivering are to the benefit of working class Canadians. I mean, we've made that very clear. Right. I go to Ottawa to work for Canadians, and so if the legislation coming forward, if I believe that's going to help Canadians, I will support it. If I think it's not going to support Canadians, I won't. But your other question you asked about was, will you be able to influence this prime minister? Well, it really does depend on what this prime minister wants to get done. I mean, if the prime minister wants to go to the polls because he's doing really well, or wants to go to an election because he's doing really well in the polls, you can only dance with someone who wants to dance with you.
That's right. Fair.
Totally fair. I want to ask about your pitch to our audience that hold NDP memberships, that are debating who they are going to vote for right now. What would be your elevator pitch to them on why you're the right person to lead this party?
This is an urgent moment in time for our party. This is an urgent moment in time for our democracy. I don't think anyone across this country thinks that having a two-party system is smart. I don't think anyone thinks that that's to the benefit of Canadians. But at this moment, we need to build back a New Democratic Party that it is strong, that can get to work on day one, that can actually do the work that the Canadians across this country need us to do. And I am the only one who can do that. I'm the only one that's been doing that work, since 2019. And so I think for me, I think it's the urgency. It's the urgency of why we need to rebuild and why we need to do it so quickly.
You're leading as a woman in the race. Does that make a difference? I ask because, one of the reasons that we started this podcast was to bring more women into it. We know that women have been really turned off by politics, and when they turn off, they tune out. So I'm always super curious about women who pursue leadership. I think it really matters. I think seeing women in those roles really matters. Has it played a role in this leadership bid for you?
I mean, I think being a woman in politics always matters.
Yeah.
I think there's always... it's always important, because you're right. Like, we need to have more women in leadership roles. We need to have more women at the table. We are still in this country in 2026, 30% represented in the House of Commons. So it does matter. I mean, it's why I got into politics to start with. I was asked, not all, but like most women, I was asked multiple times to put my name forward before I said yes. And it was actually, sitting at my kitchen table looking at my daughter and realizing that I want her to understand that she belongs at every single table, and that I can't complain about there not being enough women in politics if I wasn't going to put myself out there. But I look at the House of Commons. We are overrepresented by old white lawyers, old white male lawyers. Like, sorry, that's who's in there. And for me, what our parliament should do, like, we are the House of Commons. It is supposed to represent the people of this country. And the more women we have, the more gender diverse people, the more intersectionally, marginalized women living with disabilities, Indigenous women that are in that House of Commons. We make different ages. We make different decisions. Women prioritize different things within the House of Commons. It makes our democracy stronger. So yeah, it's always important to have women involved. In this leadership race, I don't think there's a thing in politics that isn't influenced by whether or not, by if you're a woman. I mean, of course, you guys know this. Like, we experience more hate. It was really interesting to me. I'm not sure this is a story I should tell, but I will, because it really sat with me for a minute. I ended up on the plane next to Matt Genero when I was flying to Ottawa one night. And I mean, he's from my city, and I like Matt. He's a good guy. And I was talking to him about it, and he was telling me about how horrendous it was, the hate that he was getting in as being this MP that had crossed the floor. And I said to him, like, are you literally telling the only female member of parliament in Alberta who's a New Democrat that you experienced some hate? Like, sorry, bud, that must have been tough on you. God. That must have been really rough. So, I mean, yes, of course there's an impact, and we do it anyway.
We do it anyway. Exactly. Okay. Final word to you, to our audience of both NDPers and non-NDPers. What is your pitch to them in terms of voting?
Listen, voting starts on March 9th. It started on March 9th. It is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to decide what the future of our party looks like. Are we a party that wants to yell into the abyss, that wants to continue to be the conscience of Parliament, or are we the party that wants to win more seats so that we can actually deliver on those things that we know Canadians are really desperately needing right now? For me, I want to build a party that gets more New Democrats elected. I want to build a party that welcomes people into our party, that makes people feel across this country that we are the ones that have their backs, that we are the ones that show up, that protect healthcare, that protect housing, that help folks with cost of living, with their jobs. Those are the things that I want to see for our party. And I think I can do that work. I think I can do that work on day one.
All right. Heather McPherson, leadership contender for the Federal NDP. Thank you so much for joining us, and good luck.
Thank you. This was really fun.
We'll be right back. And now for our final guest of today's show, we're joined by Avi Lewis, a veteran journalist, educator, filmmaker, and activist who brings more than 35 years of movement building experience to the Federal NDP Leadership Contest. Avi spent decades collaborating with unions and social movements, challenging power and amplifying working class voices across Canada and around the world. He's a two-time federal NDP candidate. He ran in West Vancouver's Sunshine Coast Sea to Sky country in 2021 and Vancouver Centre in 2025. He teaches climate justice and documentary film at the University of British Columbia when he's not on the campaign trail. Federal NDP leadership candidate Avi Lewis joins me now. Hi, Avi.
Hello there.
It's so nice to finally meet you. Obviously, heard about you for many, many years. You're from Vancouver, too. I love the NDP because everybody's from Vancouver.
In this race, there's like three of us, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Go West Coast. So tell our audience, who is Avi Lewis?
Wow, I didn't realize this was a philosophy podcast.
Yeah, we love philosophy.
We're in Hamlet territory all of a sudden. No, but seriously, my first career was in television journalism. I started as a local news reporter on City TV in Toronto in 1989, 1990.
Wow.
I remember my first week in the newsroom, practically the Berlin Wall fell.
Oh my
And so
God.
this whole period of the post-Cold War has been my lifetime.
Mm.
I hosted a music show on Much Music after that in the 1990s, got to interview rock stars from the Spice Girls to
What?
Keith Richards. Yes, and happily, most of this of my first career was sort of before the internet and video streaming. So my bad earrings and bad 80s batik shirts and haircut and everything is mostly not available for public consumption.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's hilarious.
Eventually, I moved into more serious political. I hosted a debate show on CBC News World Television in the late 90s called Counterspin. And I hosted more than 500 live televised debates about every conceivable political issue that was going on at that time. In 3 years. So I have a lot of TV experience, a lot of media experience. And then I started making documentary films. And then I got involved with climate activism. And that was my last big documentary, came out about 10 years ago, called This Changes Everything, which was a project that was a book and film project that I did with my partner, Naomi Klein, who's written 9 doorstopper, 600-page nonfiction books. So my mom, Michelle Landsberg, was Canada's one of Canada's only feminist newspaper columnists in the 70s and 80s, and
Really?
wrote columns for the Toronto Star and the Globe and Mail for 40 years.
Wow.
So because of the NDP leadership race, partly this is my fault because I talk about it, but there's been a lot of talk about my dad, Stephen Lewis, my grandpa, David Lewis, my grandpa going all the way back to the beginning of the CCF when he was involved from the 1930s on. But I went into my mom's profession as a journalist, as a kind of activist journalist, a social justice journalist. And so I've been connected with trade unions and worker struggles and the daily life of Canadians struggling with their bills since my earliest days as a news reporter, doing stories on how people are getting by and immigrant and refugee families being torn apart by deportations. And, so I've been in and around all the issues in Canada for my whole career.
Okay, so the federal NDP obviously didn't do great in the last federal election.
No, there's no need to candy coat it. We got our asses handed to us. We got slaughtered. It was devastating. We know that.
Okay, lost party status.
Yeah.
What do you do with the NDP in 2026? What does the NDP need right now?
Well, I think we're already doing it on our campaign, which is we need to rebuild our base. We need to rebuild our ground game and be election ready. I think there's a push-pull for any new leader. Heather obviously is already in the House, so that's a terrific advantage for her. Got a lot of respect for her work in the House, and she's in there. But it's a big country, and it doesn't all happen in the Ottawa bubble. And to rebuild as a party, we actually need to reactivate our local riding associations and our local people on the ground and get election ready, because Carney could call a snap election. Feels less likely this spring, but it's possible. And certainly the fall is possible. And so what we need is to get back party status, to recover our ability to contest for power nationally. And that looks like exciting and invigorating our base and getting our people back out there after a demoralizing defeat. And so in our campaign, we've emphasized this distributed organizing model where we have regional chapters. We've got 15 regional chapters. Some of them have hundreds of members on our campaign who are door knocking. I'm here in Toronto, and I met a whole bunch of our volunteer crew last night who were out door knocking all day yesterday. And that's something that doesn't usually happen in leadership races.
Right.
But we are rebuilding our electoral machine on the campaign. And whoever wins, I hope that our campaign infrastructure will be able to just keep going and find candidates and build up our armies on the ground to go at it in the next election. I think that's number one, because we're not going to get back parliamentary status in parliamentary committees and in question period. We're going to get it back on the streets. We're going to get it back in communities. And that's where we've been organizing.
Okay. So whoever wins, there's 5 of you in this race. What differentiates you from the other candidates?
Well, I think I'm the only leadership candidate who's campaigning regularly saying it's actually not about me. I think the cult of leadership has not served Canadians really well. I think over the last few decades, there's been more and more focus on the leader and this political idea that there's a savior, or there's one person who makes promises, right? And we give them our vote every 4 years or 2 or 3 or whatever. And that's the whole democratic process. And then we're disappointed when they don't deliver on their promises. This model is screwed. This is not, democracy has to be, it can't be a spectator sport. It's got to be a participatory thing. And it's not for the NDP where we're fighting for big changes that would benefit working people in their lives. And we have been laser focused on the cost of living crisis in our campaign, which is maybe another thing that sets us apart. We actually need people to build power locally, to come together as communities and to put pressure on the entire political class to start spending some of the immense wealth of this country on solving the everyday emergency of just trying to get by in an impossible economy, the cost of groceries, the cost of housing, the cost of your cell phone bill.
Yep.
Like we pay mobile data rates in some cases 1,000 times. That's not an exaggeration. What they pay in Finland.
That's
right?
crazy.
Because isn't that crazy? Because we have, and this is another thing that I think sets our campaign a little bit apart. We're the NDP. We're the only party that's going to criticize capitalism. I'll say that too straightforwardly, because straight talk is another element of our campaign. And capitalism is not all that popular among every Canadian family that is living in a system that they see as rigged for the rich. We got 5 big grocery chains control 80% of the market. We got 6 big banks made $70 billion, Rachel, in 1 year last year. 3 big phone companies, 5 big oil companies, and you're sobbing at the checkout in the grocery store. And Galen Weston is worth $20 billion. And the price of everything is going to go up even more with war, oil price spike. Jim Stanford, the great Canadian economist, has calculated that almost half of the last inflation surge was because of oil prices going up, which oil companies made hundreds of billions of dollars. And we are still paying for it because these monopolies are still price gouging us even after inflation came down. So that whole analysis, right? I'm just saying it like it is to Canadians. 92% of us believe that monopolies are the reason that things are too expensive. So we have an analysis, a story about why things are so hard. And we have been advancing really specific and concrete proposals about how we could put the wealth of this country to work, slashing people's household bills. And so I think some of that stuff, I know I rambled a bit there, but I think you could hear a bunch of differences from our campaign.
But it makes me wonder, you win the leadership in a couple of weeks, and the first 100 days.
Wait, that's a hypothetical.
Theoretically, and I'm playing out this scenario. So you win the leadership. The first 100 days of an Avi Lewis NDP would look like. What are your first priorities?
We get going. We got to get election ready. I've already ruled out running in any of these current by-elections because I think our party has a lot of debt after the last election, and our finances are a mess. We have really excelled in fundraising on our campaign. I've been very gratified to see that. I mean, maybe I'm a documentary filmmaker, and anyone who's ever made a film knows that you need to be able to raise money.
Right.
And we have done that, in record smashing ways on our campaign. Very, very proud of that. It's been a huge collective effort, as everything is. Very talented phoners, and our fundraising lead writes these hilarious emails that are quite unlike fundraising emails that you generally get. And they've been very successful. Yeah, you should sign up just to get Eric's emails. They're amazing. So we need to rebuild our party's finances. We need to attract star candidates. We need to identify the great organizers in ridings across this country. And we need to plan a big comeback. And I think, we had a rally in Ottawa in this beautiful church downtown where we had more than 800 people there just the other night. And they were boisterous and clapping and cheering, and like that feeling of momentum. We've got to keep it going into the next election and get back our party status and get back our power to contest for a bigger role in Parliament.
So you brought up the by-elections. You decided you're not going to run in one of them. But if you win this leadership in a couple of weeks, you're going to be the leader of the federal NDP while these by-elections are going on. Potentially, you said a federal election. How do you navigate being a new leader with no seat in the middle of these races?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that Jagmeet confronted when he was elected leader in 2017. Didn't have a seat. Jack Layton didn't have a federal seat when he was elected leader as well. And there's always this push me, pull you between got to get into the House to get my question and question period, which does everybody watch question period every day anymore? I don't know. I had lunch with a veteran Ottawa. Do you? Okay.
I love question period.
I'm sorry for your lost time every day of people up on their hind legs screaming and outrage at each other. I think actually question period really alienates Canadians because Canadians like to see us working together across party lines on legislation that directly improves their lives. And we are seeing that between Liberals and Conservatives right now. I don't agree that they're focused as they should be on improving the daily life of Canadians. I think that's another question. But like whether or not to get inside the Ottawa bubble or whether or not to stay out here in the rest of the country. I had lunch with this veteran Ottawa journalist the other day, and they said, don't be in a hurry to get in the bubble in this town. This is not where Canadians live. Stay out there talking to Canadians, building your party, because the Ottawa bubble is maybe not the be all and the end all, but it has this incredible gravitational pull. And people pulled into the Ottawa bubble feel like it's the only thing. I'm not saying it's not important. It's vital. It's the nation's capital. It's the political hub where all of that stuff happens. And we have to be able to rebuild our power inside that house to pass legislation, influence legislation, demand legislation from other parties, and eventually form government. Although we're no longer saying when I'm prime minister next 3 weeks, like that era is over. We need Canadians deserve straight talk from the NDP, and they're certainly going to get it from. I think all 5 of our candidates are really much better at being honest about where we're at than Jagmeet was at the beginning of the last election. When I think he lost a lot of people when he was still doing that traditional thing of saying when I'm prime minister. We're being honest, like we're getting back party status. And then we're going to vault to opposition, and then we're going to win government, but it's not going to happen overnight.
So vaulting to opposition, how do you position the federal NDP then in the current state of politics in this country to get there?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk of the NDP's loss of the working class vote to the Conservatives and the progressive vote to the Liberals. And that's undoubtedly true from the last election. Yeah. I'll give you one example of how I think we do it. We launched our campaign with a call for a public option for groceries. You know, price caps are good in the short term, and I think we should probably see them in this country when the oil prices drive the next inflation spike, and then groceries, which are already astronomically, inexplicably expensive, go even higher. But ultimately, that's not going to solve the problem. Price caps are a short-term measure. They work in the short term, as they have in France in recent years. As a conservative, you're not going to agree with that, but I know you're not expected to. We're talking over your heads at working class people who are like, but it's like, the public option for groceries is a very concrete plan, which we worked with food experts on, including some of the people advising Zoran Mamdani in New York, and also Canadian food experts, including folks who have decades of experience in the retail sector, which you really need to design a new system. We're talking about not nationalizing, not taking over, but actually providing some real competition to the big five who are price fixing and colluding and keeping the prices high. They fixed the price of bread for 20 years, Rachel. I mean, like, we cannot trust these guys. And so we have 50 Costco plus local, we're calling it, like warehouse style stores. 2,000 SKUs, 2,000 different products, not 25,000. So not 75 flavors of salad dressing, but food essentials. We have a national procurement network that gives us the volume purchasing price, tied into the federal food program, tied into federal institutions, prisons, whatever, educational facilities, that give us the power to compete with the big five on the wholesale end. And the federal government subsidizes the cost of the stores, the cost of unionized labor. UFCW unionizes 80%, I think, of the grocery sector. I would think they should be the ones, but whatever union it is. And so we can deliver, we believe, groceries to Canadians for 30 to 45% less at a cost of about $300 million a year to the federal government. Now, that's not a small amount of money, but it's 0.5% of our current defense budget. If we focus our public resources on addressing the cost of living crisis, we can provide public options that don't replace the private sector, but actually bring some competition into that space. SaskTel is the last the publicly owned phone company in Canada. Right. And until the last few years, if you knew anybody in Saskatchewan who moved somewhere else, they would keep their Sask number
Yeah.
Because SaskTel was providing cell phone plans where the private, like Rogers, TELUS, and Bell, lowered their plans up to 40% to compete with the public option in Saskatchewan. They still made money. It's not like they can't make money. It's like, what is reasonable profit and what is price gouging? And so the public option serves as a discipline to the market, as an effective competition, and a way of actually putting the wealth of this country directly to the task of cutting Canadians' bills. How does that position us politically? Poilievre is the only one talking about the cost of living. And he stole a lot of our working class votes because he was talking about how many people are using food banks, how many people are homeless. We're the party that cares about those folks and is prepared to offer solutions that are as big as the crises we face that would actually work. Pierre Poilievre can only say cut taxes, cut taxes, cut taxes. When you're looking at a $200 grocery bill and you don't even have meals for the week, you take the tax off for the few things that are taxed at the grocery store. That's not going to make 30, 40% difference. That's not going to make a difference you can feel. We're talking about a solution that will actually slash your bills. Oh, and by the way, a lot of our solutions also slash emissions and deal with the climate emergency at the same time. The climate has not stopped breaking down just because it's not in the headlines anymore. So a lot of our emphasis on the different political offer is to be a party of climate champions, as Carney has abandoned climate policy. And again, Poilievre only offers market mechanisms or not even caring about the climate emergency. And 4 out of 5 Canadians still believe that the federal government has to ramp up climate action. And there's a way to do it, whether it's power lines instead of pipelines in a 21st century electrical grid, an electric bus revolution to reconnect our country and save our auto industry, use Canadian steel and create unionized Canadian jobs. We can slash emissions and slash your household bills with the very same policies. And that's the kind of offer that's going to win back working class voters from the Conservatives and progressive voters from the Liberals at the same time.
Whew. All right. That,
you still with me?
Yeah, no, it's a very strong policies. It's very interesting. Yeah. But I want to give you the opportunity before we wrap here to make your pitch to NDP members. We have a lot of them that listen to us. They're all currently in a voting period for leader.
Yes, right.
Why should they vote for Avi Lewis?
Well, first of all, we are offering solutions as big as the crises we face, and it's resonating like hell across this country. We are not afraid to criticize Conservatives and Liberals who are voting together to transform our economy and militarizing our society. Canadians are scared, so are NDPers. We need a modern military, but 5% of our entire economy to the military and the defense industrial strategy that Carney has launched in this period of war. We want to be arms dealers? No. We need to return to a society where the public wealth is put behind the public interest. And we are doing that in really specific ways that are resonating across this country already. And we're also doing it in a style that values and brings home our NDP base. We believe that 343 riding associations should be community organizing hubs that organize all year round, connect with tenants organizing, connect with workers on strike, connect with defending public health care and social services in communities. And then when we knock on the doors every 4 years, or sometimes every 2 or 3 in this era of minorities, instead of just extracting people's vote and their time, we want to sign, we want your money, we want you to knock doors with us. We want to show that we're standing up for people in our communities so that they come and stand with us in election time. That's the kind of party that the CCF was in the 1940s and the 1960s when we won healthcare for everyone. Tommy Douglas was called a radical, advancing ideas that were way outside the box for public healthcare. He knew that a supermajority of Canadians were behind these basic common sense solutions, and we can bring that kind of NDP back. And I think on our campaign, we're already doing it. So come and join us, and let's get to work on the next election.
All right. Well, Avi Lewis, we wish you all the best in the on election day, and hope you'll come back if you're elected leader.
Would love to. Thank you so much for this time.
All right. We'll be right back.
Thank you for listening. New episodes air every Friday.
Subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and find us at beyondaballot.com.